This is the story of two crimes committed in different states, 500 miles apart. In each case, a woman was assaulted late at night. Investigators found the same signature elements in both crimes. The calling card of this perpetrator was so unusual, it eventually cost him his life. Perth Amboy, New Jersey, about an hour's drive from the hustle and bustle of New York City. For 300 years, this riverfront town has been a haven for immigrants seeking a better life in America. Melissa Padilla's parents came from Puerto Rico. She and her 4 brothers grew up here.
Yeah, she was my right hand. She was always helping me with them. She was like a second mother to them. They depend on her.
I remember her often helping me out with my work. She was an excellent speller, and my spelling is just something I've never been able to handle. And she was always there when I needed some help with that.
Melissa attended high school in Perth Amboy, but quit in her junior year and later became pregnant. She had 3 more children in rapid succession, and in 1994 was unmarried and supporting herself and the children with a monthly welfare check.
She didn't have any technical skills or something that would demand a high-paying job, so she would have to suit for minimum wage, and there was no way that she was going to make it with that.
Melissa was able to scrape by for a while, but then she fell behind on her rent and lost her apartment. Melissa and her children then moved into the Gem Motel, one of several cheap motels located along Route 1, a main north-south artery in Avenel, New Jersey. On the night of August 11, 1994, Melissa left the children with her boyfriend and walked to a nearby convenience store for some groceries.
She went out at 11 at night because her kids were hungry.
Melissa left the store around 11:30 and headed back to the motel, but she never arrived. Her boyfriend told police he found her half-naked body later that night along the highway. Melissa's mother got the word shortly after the body was discovered.
You're not supposed to bury your children. That you're gonna die before them. No parents want to bury their children. It's hard. I was supposed to go before her.
Most murderers go to great lengths to avoid detection. Melissa's killer didn't seem to care, committing his crime along a busy highway where he could have been easily seen. It was this brazenness that would eventually be his downfall. When Melissa Padilla left her hotel room to buy food for her young children, her route took her along a well-traveled highway to a nearby convenience store. Melissa never returned. Her boyfriend told police he found her body in a sewer pipe near the highway. She was naked from the waist down.
The autopsy revealed that she died as a result of the manual asphyxiation and assault.
There were several grocery items near the body, as well as Melissa's blood-spattered shorts found about half a block away, with the pocket turned out. But the most telling evidence came from Melissa's body itself.
Her eyes were battered, indicating that she had received punches from someone who was strong and who subdued her in that way. The fact that she was naked and that her genital area was mutilated obviously indicated that there was a sexual assault.
Scrapings from under her fingernails revealed DNA that authorities hoped would bring a conviction if they could only find a suspect. Looking for eyewitnesses.
There was a witness that was identified that was interviewed who indicated they were traveling past the roadway and saw what appeared to be 2 individuals in some sort of struggle, standing up near the concrete pipes.
But the witness could provide little useful information. The battering about Melissa's face and the bite marks on her breast and chin led police to theorize that her killer got a perverse pleasure out of assaulting women and might have struck before. Just a mile from the murder scene was a prison for convicted sex offenders. A check of prison records showed a number of released prisoners living in the area.
We then pulled their files to determine what their MO was and whether they were involved in any kind of ritual when they committed their sex crimes.
They complied with requests for DNA samples. They complied with exemplar requests for hairs. They also submitted to polygraph examinations that were conducted by the Woodbridge Police Department, and they all were eliminated as suspects in the crime.
Melissa's boyfriend, who had stayed with her children, was also eliminated.
Eventually, things started to appear that we have an unsolved homicide with no suspect to pursue.
8 months later, 500 miles away in Maine, there was another assault strikingly similar to Melissa Padilla's.
Excuse me, sir. Are you okay?
This crime was bold and brazen, but the perpetrator made a mistake in choosing his victim. She was a state trooper. Months after the murder of Melissa Padilla, police still didn't have a suspect.
Excuse me, sir. Are you okay?
Gardner discovered that the driver, Stephen Fortin, had been drinking.
Would you please get out of the car?
Since she was off duty, she called for another police vehicle to take Fortin into custody.
Would you send some backup?
When Fortin heard this, he exploded.
Fortin sucker punched her, ripped her clothes off, molested her. In the process of molesting her, he bit her. And when the backup cruiser arrived, he took off in the cruiser.
Vicki Gardner was unconscious, still in the vehicle. When she regained consciousness, she opened the passenger door and tried to jump out.
He was sort of trying to reach out and grab a hold of her and pull her back in, and she swung herself away from him and got away from the assault and the way in which the assault took place. And every aspect about it, you knew that you were dealing with someone who had done something like this before.
In fact, a check of police records in Fortin's home state of New Jersey revealed that he had a history of violence. Fortin's name was well known to Prosecutor Tapsack. He had sent him to prison for 7 years on a manslaughter charge. Fortin got out after only 2.5 years.
He had stabbed his brother in the throat in 1983 in the township of Carteret, and was pled guilty to that.
When the New Jersey State Police heard the news of Steve Fortin, hoped the DNA evidence taken from under Melissa's fingernails would incriminate Fortin, but it didn't.
When it was compared to Stephen Fortin from Maine's evidence that we obtained from them, the DNA lab could not include him or exclude him as a source.
With the DNA results inconclusive, the bite marks on the two victims seemed to be prosecutors' best chance of linking Fortin to Melissa Padilla's murder. A plaster impression was therefore made on Fortin's teeth. The impression, along with photographs of the bite marks, were sent to Dr. Lowell Levine, a respected forensic odontologist who worked for the New York State Police.
These are Mr. Fortin's teeth. They're actually models of them. And they're made the same way as the orthodontist would take models or the dentist takes models to do prosthetic devices. If you take a look at the upper teeth, he's got a space between his two middle front ones. And the one on the right is bigger than the one on the left because it's a cap. And in fact, the biting surface is slightly wider also from front to back. If you look at the models of the lower teeth, they're very, very straight across the bottom of them. He's got almost no wear on the incisal edges, so they leave linear markings rather than rectangles, and they're very, very straight across, and he's got the slightly pointed canines, so he doesn't have a whole lot of wear.
Levine compared Fortin's teeth to the bite marks on Vicki Gardner and Melissa Padilla. He found them to be a match. Leaving nothing to chance, prosecutors also brought in Roy Hazelwood, a former FBI profiler and an expert on criminal behavior.
He was interested in my studying the crimes to determine whether or not I could do a linkage analysis in the two crimes. A linkage analysis is an in-depth study of two or more crimes with the idea of attempting to determine whether or not they were committed by the same person.
Hazelwood concluded that the same man had indeed committed both crimes. The trial of Stephen Fortin began on October 31st, 2000. A trial with no eyewitnesses, circumstantial evidence, and inconclusive DNA findings. The prosecutor's case rested almost entirely on the opinions of two forensic experts. The murder of Melissa Padilla and the assault of a Maine state trooper were so strikingly similar that this became a critical part of the prosecution's case. At Stephen Fortin's trial, Maine State Trooper Vicki Gardner took the stand to describe how Fortin had beaten and sexually assaulted her.
Then we had to bring in witnesses that brought the two crimes together, and they were Hazelwood and Levine.
Addressing the jury, Roy Hazelwood explained that some crimes, like the murder of Melissa Padilla and the assault of Trooper Gardner, have unique patterns of behavior which he called rituals.
The ritual are those acts which are unnecessary to the commission of the crime and are carried out to meet the emotional needs of the offender.
In this case, the need for psychosexual gratification. Hazelwood identified 5 examples of ritualistic behavior that were common to both cases.
Bite mark to the chin, bite mark to the left breast, excessive battering to the upper portion of the face in both instances, injurious anal penetration, and manual strangulation from the front. I've never seen that combination of behaviors in any other crime.
Then Dr. Levine explained to the jury that no two people have teeth patterns that are exactly the same.
What I basically did was to show the jurors that people leave bite marks.
By explaining to the jury why Fortin had bitten his victims on the chin.
What we finally decided regarding the bite mark to the chin was that Stephen Fortin was biting the victim on the chin while he was looking in her eyes and mutilating her genitals, and that he was getting a perverse pleasure out of that.
On February 26, 2001, Fortin was sentenced to die by lethal injection.
It was justice, but I didn't feel like a vengeance, that justice should have been served, you know. I was grateful.
Roy Hazelwood and Lowell Levine were absolutely critical to the case. This case, like most murder cases, depended on circumstantial evidence, on forensic evidence, on expert testimony.
And the tools those experts have to draw on, says Hazelwood, are growing more and more sophisticated every year.
I'm continuously amazed at the strides we've made in investigating crimes and solving crimes and prosecuting crimes.
Stephen Fortin is now in Trenton State.